Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy will be better than Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore. That and more on tonight's episode of Charlie and the Boys. As always, I'm your host, Stephen Chalico, and joined with me is one of the co-hosts, William. Will, how are you doing tonight?
Doing very good, very good.
Good? Okay.
Excited about tonight's episode.
Yeah. So as you heard, we have a claim by our other co-host who isn't here conveniently. So he has us saying this wild shit and doesn't show up. But so with the quote we are given, Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy will be essentially have a more successful season than Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore will. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's true? Do you agree, disagree? What do you got?
Um, well, I mean, it's not an easy it's not an easy question to
Sure.
ask, right?
Yeah.
It's because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, if the Cowboys get another receiver, then I would tend to say they're going to be better off just because, listen, the Chargers have been nothing but a dumpster fire for. They can't get out of their own way. It's the special teams, or you know what I mean. For a long time, they've had this talented team. They draft really well, you know, and they just can't get out of their own way, right? So does it really matter what kind of talent they have and stuff if it just seems to be a running joke that basically since they got Philip Rivers, now they got really good young Justin Herbert. What's gonna be? So I guess the answer is it's hard to tell now. But if you made me
Sure.
guess right now, I would say that Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert's offense will score more points and be more productive than the Cowboys' offense, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. um, I actually
Matter
almost
of
agree
fact,
with.
it's probably a better thing for the Cowboys. So
I think I agree with everything you're saying. So I definitely think Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert will be more successful. Sure, and I guess that depends on obviously how you want to define success.
yeah.
And it's impossible to tell, right? Are we really even in the off season yet, like we are for the Chargers
Mm.
and the Cowboys, right? But like, I mean, there's still games to be played technically, so anything can happen between
Well, yep.
now and next year. Well, yeah, but there's the Pro Bowl, excuse me. Well, that's not even a game anymore, right? Those are just like dodgeball and shit.
I think they have. I think there's. Well, first of all,
Flag football?
I think they're having a flag football game, right?
Yeah, that's fucking gay.
I remember when they used to have when that used to be a thing. I think during they used to have a rookie whatever and a running back for the Patriots. I'm 95% positive his name was Robert Edwards. Blew out his ACL in that game, like the beach volleyball or the flag football game on the beach, whatever. And he
Sure.
never he basically ruined his career.
Fucking Pro
Like
Bowl game.
but do you know what I mean? Like, could you imagine that? I don't know, just like I can't think of somebody else. The first person I thought to my head was Tom Brady, but imagine if he was in his prime and he went to
Yeah.
and then he just
Died.
blew out his knee.
Mhm. Yeah,
They
heartbreaking.
would. I mean, they should just get rid of that in the first. I mean, everybody. I don't know anybody that wants to see this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's gotten
Um,
pretty bad.
they
But
should just make it like an award show where they just bring out each person that they name. That this guy made the All Pro, he made a Pro Bowl, blah blah blah, whatever, and it's just an award show, in my opinion.
yeah, okay. Maybe another topic. Let's get back
Oh,
to it. I think that I guess I didn't really expect that to go that way.
all right.
Um, but yeah, so I mean Justin Herbert, I mean I don't really know what to say about him. Everybody's like, yeah, I mean, he's like hands down better than Dak, but like, I mean, he hasn't done anything more than Dak has,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
besides
yeah.
have, sure, I get he definitely has more arm talent, but that's really about it.
Yeah, he's
Um,
more physically gifted than
yeah.
most quarterbacks,
So
like
I think
almost all.
with that and what we've seen from Herbert, I think I'm one of the people that thinks Dak has limited Kellen Moore's playbook.
Me
How
too.
much
Yeah,
he has, I don't know, but I think there is some truth to that, and I think that will be less true with Herbert because he can make far more throws than Dak can, at least probably. So, yeah, I think they'll have a little bit more success, but I also agree that I think this is going to be a really good thing for Dak, especially if McCarthy's calling plays. Now, what we don't know, one, is if that's 1,000% true. Like, that could change as well. Assuming that stays true, is Mike McCarthy just calling plays out of the current playbook, or is he going back to his West Coast playbook? Um, I think if he goes back to that West Coast style playbook, that could really benefit Dak because it's a lot of timing routes. There's not much guessing between where your receiver's going to be or where he should be. It's dude man's going to be here at hopefully this time, right?
yeah,
Like You hit him there or you don't, or you go to the next read. So I think that'll benefit Dak a lot. Uh, so I agree.
So the only person that I've seen, because I think it was either you or Stash had linked in our chat, was that it was a tweet from Tom Pelissaro that said that McCarthy would be either taking over the play calling duties
Hmm.
or or he's the likely candidate. But
Yeah,
I mean, there's plenty of guys that are plugged in that don't have any information on it at all, meaning that Tom Pelissaro probably maybe overstepped his boundaries, that he got
maybe.
that that he shouldn't have said that or whatever, or I don't know. There's just I know there's a lot of guys plugged into the Cowboys that have been there for a long time because Jerry's been there for a long time and he's got his boys. But even just simple things like guys like Ed Werder, right? He always seems to have uh news, not in on it early, right? Or
Yeah,
like Todd Archer is ESPN's guy or whatever, right? His main job is ESPN. So I don't know. It's interesting that only one guy, nobody else ran with it. Like, oh yeah, I heard the same thing, kind of thing. So I don't know that, but my guess is they. I mean, this is what we kind of said. Hey, listen, the only way we can evaluate McCarthy anyway is if he's calling the plays. We right now he's basically we said this is he's basically just doing what Jason Garrett did. He was overseeing the whole thing and didn't have any quote unquote say.
yeah. He wasn't really doing anything, right? Like Jason Garrett for
Right.
several years was a game manager, right? Like I mean, there was a handful of years there where he was calling the offensive plays, but I guess I'd really have to go back, but I'm confident that there were far more years where he was not calling the plays than what he was. So yeah, I mean, it's McCarthy. I don't want to say 2.0 because I think McCarthy's been far more successful in the three
Yeah.
years he's been here than
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
any
Yeah.
3 years of Garrett's combined,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's including the 2014 year and 2014, 15, and 16 when Dallas was, I guess you could say, in
By
in a in a
McCarthy.
Super Bowl window and
Yeah.
really just never made it. Um, I think that we're also going to learn a lot about McCarthy, right? So we saw, I mean, not that we follow the Packers, but I think the general NFL fan understands that McCarthy's last years in Green Bay were not pretty. Or like I'm pretty sure he still had a top 10 scoring offense his last 3 years there, but I mean, from what I have read and understand, the Packers front office kind of took the play calling out of his hands because he essentially wasn't able to call plays and manage the game efficiently. Um, I don't know how much truth to
I've
that
heard it
is, but
as where he just didn't wanna evolve, and all the stuff he was doing, Rodgers had basically all of the authority to just check out of stuff,
yeah,
and that'd be my guess is that's exactly what's going on with Dak right now too. Or was going on is that he was checking out of, he might have been calling the right plays to check into or out of or whatever, but just the fact, that's another thing where you can't really fault the play caller and stuff if, you know, you can give him the fault there. You give Dak or whoever gives Dak the ability to do that. But what if Kellen Moore is calling? We can't know, right? But what if
yeah,
he's calling the right play, and Dak sees something and he just checks out of like what would have been a 30-yard play and ends up being a negative 2 yard,
sure,
whatever.
yeah, we'll never know. Unfortunately, right? Like that's one of those things. Like man, I wish I knew what the play was actually called, or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. That'd be pretty neat. But yeah, we'll never know. Um, but I mean, do you trust McCarthy to do that now? Like, what makes you, and not maybe not literally you, but what would make people think like McCarthy has evolved to be able to do that now, or what makes
I,
people think Dak has evolved to be able to maybe run the offense a little bit more than he ever has in the past?
I just think that, and we said this before Kellen Moore got fired. We all think Kellen Moore is really smart,
Yep.
and well, me and you agree that he definitely our thought is that he was more hindered by Dak than Dak was by him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, oh crap. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't need to be all wild and crazy and whatever. And as long as he's just calling the basic stuff and letting Dak do what Dak's going to do anyway, then maybe that's just better off anyway. Like where he tells him, listen, just rein it in a little bit. We don't need to do all this stuff. We just need to get first downs and we need to stay on the field and score enough points because our defense is going to be able to carry us,
Mhm. Yeah.
because him airing it out, you just can't make the argument that they didn't have enough offense of weapons, and you can't make the argument it has to be one or the other. It can't be both. That okay, listen, he didn't have enough weapons, but they also paid him $40 million. So what'd you expect? I mean, what $40 million quarterbacks have all the weapons in the world that can't carry the team, right? So you either got to rein him back in, which would be McCarthy just playing it easy, I guess, or whoever I mean, they may still hire somebody, and then maybe McCarthy just has a little more input or say or whatever. But even then, we won't even know about that stuff until something bad or something really good happens too, right? Because then they're like, oh yeah, I've been calling the plays, or oh yeah, the new guy was calling the plays, so that's why we had to change, to
Yeah.
me or you or whoever to call the plays because we wanted to give him a chance or whatever. It's just kind of weird too because, or I assume you might get this whatever. But what kind of if they hired an offensive coordinator, what kind of offensive coordinator worth any kind of ability or young up and coming guy would want to come in and not call his own plays?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question.
Because then it's like, okay, well, you hired me for what? To hold a
Why am I
clipboard? How
here?
does that
Yeah.
help my career? You know?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think there's also something to say that maybe to like backstep a little bit. And again, we both agree that we both think Dak limited Kellen's playbook. But to be fair, I also was never really a fan of Kellen Moore, and maybe I wasn't really a fan of him because his playbook was limited by Dak. Um, but Kellen Moore was very clearly and very obviously, and this is hopefully bodes to show how good of a play caller he actually could be or was or whatever. Uh, Kellen Moore had the job for the Chargers before he mutually parted ways with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean,
Right, right.
there
They
was
offer it
less
to
than
him, yeah.
12 there was less than 12 hours between the time they mutually parted ways and Kellen Moore had a job, right? Like
Mm.
so either Kellen was going to just leave Dallas for the Chargers job or he maybe was catching wind of a potential firing for him and he was looking for a job. Either way,
Right.
uh, it wasn't just the Chargers that were looking into Kellen, right? Like I know the Panthers were too, the Panthers or whatever, but so were the Buccaneers, right? So we've had two playoff
I mean,
teams publicly come out and say, "Hey, we want Kellen to be at least our offensive coordinator." Uh,
I mean, he interviewed for multiple head coaching jobs,
yeah. So
including, I mean, he was one of the finalists for the Eagles job.
yeah, last year you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Or
with when
2 years
they hired
ago? Yeah, 2 years ago.
How is it, Sirianni or whatever.
Yep.
That's pretty wild, that he came that far and he's now, just an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So while I mean, I think his time was rightfully so over in Dallas. Uh, I don't think it's because he like actually deserved to be fired because he was trash. Right? Like I think, as I said in a previous episode, I think the best way you evaluate Dak Prescott is to get him in a different offense for at least 1 year, and then that
Yeah.
that one more year is what all you need to know if you resign or move on from Dak. And that so conveniently is only 1 year left of guaranteed money on his deal.
Yeah, that's what I mean, if you just look at this like all types of big picture, right?
Hmm.
That's exactly what this is. They retains Dan Quinn. I could almost guarantee now that they said, "Hey, listen, Dan, this is you're either going to stay as the defensive coordinator, upcoming year or whatever, and make all types of Skrilla, right? Because we're paying you more than head coaches, right?
Yeah.
Either you're going to stay here and you're going to keep looking good, or McCarthy and Dak are going to shit the bed, and you're going to be our next head coach, and you'll have your own pick of quarterback and whatever, whatever, whatever."
Yep. So I think that's all true. I do think there's a third truth to that.
Okay.
Um, that Dan Quinn is just waiting for whatever he thinks is the perfect job. Right. Whether he thinks that's the head
Mm.
coaching gig in Dallas or, somewhere else, but uh, maybe he just didn't want to go be the head coach. Like, who the fuck wants to go be the head coach of the Denver Broncos right now? They're a disaster. Who the hell
Well,
wants to go be the head coach in the Panthers? Like, don't tell me Frank Reich wants to be the Panthers head coach. Like,
yeah,
nobody wants that job.
yeah,
Like, that's
because
like,
that's I mean it's a career ender.
yeah, and that's, hopefully Frank Reich does great, whatever, fucking do good
Doubt
things.
it
But
though. Yeah.
dude, that's just a paycheck, and I don't blame him. Like, it's a good paycheck. It's more money
Oh
than I'll
yeah,
ever
yeah,
make. But like,
yeah.
nobody's like, man, I would love to just go be the head coach of the fucking Panthers right now. Like, no, nobody's saying that about any of the bottom 10 teams in the league. And there's no and I guess rightfully so, there's no good spot open this year, right? Like, because good teams are retaining their coaching staffs.
Yeah.
So I think Dan
Well,
Quinn could also just be waiting for, again, I don't know what he would define as his perfect job, waiting for that perfect job to open back up if it's not the Dallas Cowboys head coach.
yeah. I just, man, you got to wonder, like, what the hell is the perfect job, though?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but Denver's front office is a hot mess. Like it's probably worse than Dallas in the sense that. So what, man? What did I hear recently that like the owners like were skipping out on coaches interviews to go like hunting and shit because they were like I don't know who does the interviews if the owner's not doing it. Maybe they
Right,
just
right,
hire
right.
someone to do the interview, but
Interesting.
um, you know, like I mean, if you don't even have the respect of the owners, you're going to potentially be the head coach for like why like why would you want to go there? So maybe it was just an awkward fit, and he's just waiting for I mean I don't know Buccaneers job in 2 years or something. I don't know. Just
Yeah. I yeah, I mean, it's either he is waiting or whatever, or I mean, he had to have known that, all right, I know I'm not getting this job, so let me just take this job and stay here and get this money, Because my guess is if he goes and like, let's say he wanted the Broncos job, he probably not getting paid as much as he is
no.
as the defensive coordinator
Yeah.
in Dallas.
There's
So
all
it
I
probably is, it's like a downgrade.
almost
I
no
mean, I
way.
guaranteed money longer because you probably got to sign like a 3 or 4 year deal, so you get that money. But
Yeah. I don't know how much you listen to Broadus either. I mean I know you
it's
say he's
yeah,
he's your
number one
guy, but
fan. Yeah,
so I was listening to him and fucking Bobby fucking Belt's show
yeah,
last week, maybe Friday or something like that,
yeah,
and he did mention that like uh there's a chance that Dan Quinn just likes being a defensive coordinator, right? Like, and specifically the position he's in Dallas, right? Like where uh, he's happy with the input he gets with the roster, but he doesn't actually have to make roster
yeah,
decisions.
yeah.
Uh, and there's a chance that just Dan Quinn just really likes that. Like,
There's just
he's
no. I mean, there's no pressure on him.
yeah, and he's getting a fat fucking paycheck. He's
Yeah,
getting a lot of success and dodging all of the blame. And to a degree, rightfully so. I mean, there were some low points for the defense, but for the most part, I mean, you show me a Cowboys fan who's not happy with Dan Quinn.
true.
Again, there were
That's
a
yeah,
couple
yeah.
couple of rough games, but like I don't know that anybody was calling for Dan Quinn's job during the year.
No, yeah, we were starting to get a little worried, but yeah, you're
Hmm.
right. At no point were we like, all right, he's got to go. We were like, all
Yeah,
right, let's kick it into something is definitely off. And like you were saying, they were kind of intentionally rotating guys in and not, taking
yeah,
stuff too serious.
yeah. I mean, so I don't know that there's many coaches jobs out there, head coaches and offensive coordinators included, that have a safer or better gig than Dan Quinn. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure there's a couple
yeah,
out there,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't, not to be ignorant, but like, he's
Well, I mean,
probably
just
got one of the best gigs out there.
think about it. 2 years in a row, in playoff contention, right? Or or in the playoffs. During the playoffs, prepping to go to the San Francisco or in San Francisco coming to Dallas, whatever. He's going on interviews for other teams.
Hmm.
Like you don't think that I know this is probably not legal, or whatever, but you don't think that like when coaches or when owners see that happen, they're like, "Yo, f this dude." Like, why would we want
Yeah,
him back?
maybe.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, oh, he's too good. We're giving him however much $1 million a year. He's gonna take a pay cut to go coach somewhere. F that. You know?
that's not where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to drop some statistics on us. How 2 years in a row his defense has led the league in turnovers and top three in sacks.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, I mean, defenses don't. I don't know that anybody's ever repeated. Had back-to-back lead the league in takeaways. That might have been a first. If not, it's been
Yeah,
fucking in my
yeah.
first time in my lifetime. And
That's
then
not a
to
thing that
be,
happens often.
they
Yeah.
were first last year in sacks, I think, and then I think they were third, maybe even second this year, far behind the Eagles.
It's
Um,
crazy too, but they were way ahead of the Eagles. No, they weren't way ahead. They were ahead of the Eagles,
yeah.
maybe halfway through, and they kind of took out. They fell off a cliff,
Hmm.
which is pretty, and it's pretty wild that
Well, there was like 2 weeks in a row where they didn't have any
right, yeah, not
for,
just not good, but yeah, and
is
then
what
the
it is. But
Eagles.
either
I mean,
way, I
the Eagles
mean,
got a good defense, so you got to
yeah,
give them credit for that or
yeah.
whatever. But
I mean, you're number two or number three in the league in sacks. I mean,
yeah, it's not nothing.
yeah, yeah, you can't be upset about that unless it's nobody has sacks, then it's nothing. But yeah, so to be able to replicate that defense year in and year out, um, yeah, man, I don't know. Like nobody's mad at Dan Quinn right now. You shouldn't
Uh,
be.
do you have anything else you want to talk about, or do you want to bounce? You want to end this one here, or
Um,
can I say one more thing,
yeah, man.
or what
What
else
do you
did you
got?
want to talk about? I guess.
I don't know.
Well, I heard
Buck Kellen
I
Moore.
can't confirm this. Okay,
Oh
so
God.
I don't know for sure. But I heard the stat today on it was on 105.3 The Fan, and they said in the last 10 years, the Cowboys have made one major free agent signing. Okay,
Oh
and
yeah.
that it was Brandon Carr.
Yep. Yeah.
Brandon Carr. It
Fucking
was
what? 12
five or
years
six
ago.
million for. Well, it must have been 10 years ago because they said
Sure.
within the last 10 years,
Okay.
and it was 5 or 6 years for 50 million, right? With 25.5 million dollars guaranteed.
Yeah.
Now the statistic is, and that's not even the statistic. The statistic is that the Cowboys have not spent $25.5 million total on the rest of their free agents guaranteed.
Yep.
That's crazy. Everybody makes a big deal at the Cowboys. They're wild spenders and this and that and this and that. Well, they're probably the least wild of the spenders. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, I think the. I mean, this is like a whole nother episode. Um, and definitely goes well into the off season. The problem with their spending in free agency is that they hit on dudes like we'll say Dante Fowler for example. No, that's a bad example. We'll say Ron Curse. Uh, nope, also a bad example. Dante Fowler is a better example. Dante Fowler was good enough this year to be a rotational player that was dirt cheap, essentially on a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
veteran minimum. And they do shit like that every year, where they get dirt cheap rotational players and they either make it to the playoffs or they lose in fucking week 18 and they just miss the playoffs. And the front
Yeah,
office is like, man, let's just fucking run it back because it worked last year.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, yeah, they're. It appears that they're okay with just making it to the dance.
mhm.
And they're the it sucks because we're the fans of the team, but I mean they own the team, so they can run it however they want.
Yeah,
We don't really have any say at all because there's not enough fans and to there's not enough fans that would start boycotting that they would
no,
ever feel the money loss. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
yeah,
But I mean, I'm okay. I have no problem with them doing the cheap route. I really don't. The problem I have is that they look at it as okay, we're gonna go the cheap route, but because we they look at free agency as hey, we resign all of our draft picks or all the draft picks that are worth resigning. That's how they look at it. That's their win in free agency because they do spend the money. I mean, you know what I mean? They're not spending the money. It just so happens like four of the last like eight deals that they've re-signed in draft picks have been bad.
really bad.
So if it was just two of the eight, you know what I mean, or one of three, that's the end of the because then you have the money to afford a couple maybe better free agents, but because they spent and I know I'm in the minority. They didn't have to give Dak $40 million. We can disagree about that, right? They paid Zeke 2 years before they needed to. They shouldn't have paid a running back in the first place, but
True.
I get it. They whiffed on Jalen Smith. Michael Gallup's contract does not look good, although you can say that now. Next year, I assume he looks way better, and then the contract doesn't look bad at all. I mean, it doesn't. The money is not horrific. It's just you didn't get enough out of him for what he got paid this year. But if the
Yeah,
next 3 years of the deal, if he just plays like how he used to, or how we were
it's a
used to
great
seeing
deal.
him, then
Yeah,
it's a great deal. Um, but and also probably couldn't have signed him. You wouldn't have signed him to that deal if he hadn't gotten hurt. So you pay him a little bit up front to hopefully get better on the end.
yeah, yeah. I say we wrap it up there, and if you want to do another quick one on maybe some
Let's do
free
it.
agent shit, I'll hit you with a wild question on the next one, and we'll,
All
we'll
right.
end it there. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up there, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna do another one real quick, and we'll catch you on the flip side, I guess.
See you, boys, girls.